Hey guys, so today I thought I'd make a video on how to level the bed on this Geeetech. I had somebody ask a question about how I go about setting it up for doing my prints, and so I'll go over that today. And I'll kind of go over from the very beginning on, like if you assemble it and you're setting it up for the first time, at least the steps I used whenever I first set it up. So when I very first assembled the printer, right off the bat, your Z-axis rods are not going to be, if you go even with the factory nuts that are screwed onto here, no matter what you do, you're not going to have everything at the same level. So the first thing I did is I took my ruler and I measured from the print bed to the rods going across. And like right here, the very top of the rod's sitting at 115 millimeters. And so what you want to do is you want to see to it that your rods are fairly close to that level, which they are in this case. If this was up higher, of course, I would hold this side and then slowly move that side until it went down or up, however I need to adjust it. So right now we're level on that, so I'm not going to worry about that part. That's just for the crude adjustment portion of it. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to level your bed. Now, right out of the gate, if I was doing this, let me grab the right size here. They don't put sizes on these tools, so I don't know exactly what size it is. Personally, what I did, when I very first did, is I screwed this down until it was fairly tight to the, I move it back here, until the screws were tightened down fairly tight, the springs were compressed pretty good. Now since then I did go with the wobble brackets. But what I did is when I did the wobble brackets, I had to take and lower the couplers down lower and all that. That's on a whole other video. I'll add the link to the video description. In fact, it'll be right up there right now. I'll set a link up for it. The thing is, right now I'm just kind of going basics over it. So what you want to do whenever you're leveling your bed, you want to go ahead and turn on your machine. What I recommend doing is taking the screw on the side here that is for the Z-axis end stop. You want to screw it down fairly far. Right now, just for giggles, let's go ahead and do it. We're just going to pretend this is the first time I've ever done this. So I'm taking this thing completely out of adjustment. I'm going to screw that down until it's fairly down. I'll even go as far as doing this. Why not, right? Of course, everybody right now that knows about the Z-wobble brackets just know that I just messed everything up. Which is alright. Let's go ahead and do that one down a few turns, huh? Okay, so first things first, we want to auto home. Okay, so what we're going to do is auto home. So we're going to press this button here, move this filament out of the way, move down to prepare, go to auto home, and then we're going to want to hover right on disable steppers, and to make sure the screen doesn't go off or time out, just want to move back and forth. Now you want to keep an eye down here. If it looks at any time like it's going to touch, like that's going to bottom out, then we want to hit disable, but it didn't, so we're good. Sweet. There we go. Okay, so now that we're at that point, we definitely want to go up here, go to info screen, go to prepare, disable steppers. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move this over to the side. First thing you're going to watch for is did that bump. It's not bumping, so we're alright. The other thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to decide, do you want to have that go down lower, or if you want it to stay like that. Since I did screw that down. Actually, I did raise the height of that. Okay, so that's cool. So for a crude adjustment, you would do this one. Like right now, I have just approximately 7-8 millimeters between the nozzle and the print bed. So what we can do is we can back this off a little bit. Kind of using this as a guide. Just kind of raise it up a little bit until we think it's close. Go ahead and auto home again. And what it's going to do is going to raise off the end stop, and it's going to slowly drop back down onto it until it clicks. Nice thing about the Geeetech is it does it off the bed. It's a blessing, it's a curse. But in this case, it's a blessing because we're not going to have to worry about it ramming into that bed. Now you want to go back up, go to Prepare, Disable Steppers. Now you're going to move it over. Like right now, we are still probably about 3 millimeters from the print bed. But at the same time, we did compress this down. So you don't want to keep letting this out to the point where the spring no longer has tension against it. Once you get to that point, then it's not going to hold its position. It's going to always move around every time it jiggles around, and all the shaking it does. So what I do is I would just back it off. I wouldn't go much past that. You want to make sure that screw has tension against it. Also, you want to make sure that it's fairly centered onto that end stop. I'm going to go to Prepare, Auto Home again. Once again, it's going to go off the print bed, and then it's going to drop down. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to disable the steppers once more. Okay, so now we're getting down to where it's getting close to the print bed. Let's see, a piece of paper slips underneath it. Some people use 2 pieces of paper, some people use business card stock, but I want my prints to be smashed down to the print bed fairly decent. So what I do is I just go with a single piece of paper. It's 20-pound printer paper, typing paper, whatever you want to call it. It's the standard 20-pound. And then what you're going to do is you're going to move that underneath it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move this top motor, which by the way, you don't want to move these real fast when you're doing this, otherwise it creates current. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it back and forth, and I'm slowly going to unscrew, loosen up the screws. That's going to cause the spring to push against the bottom of the build plate and push it up to the nozzle. Now, if you remember right, I screwed it down pretty tight, so okay, right there, I don't know if you can hear that, but there's a little bit of a drag. And notice right there when I pulled the screwdriver off, it tightened up even more. You always want to take your screwdriver off completely every time you do this. Otherwise, it'll be tighter than what you think. Okay, so that one there, I'm happy with it, but we're a long way from being done. So on this side over here, it's pretty loose. So now we're going to loosen this side up. Tighten it. It's a little bit too loose. Oh, wrong way. Too tight. Too tight. Too tight. Okay. Now let me see if I got another piece of paper over here that's a little bit smaller. I don't. That's alright. Now what you're going to do is you're going to pull the build plate back. Don't pull it so far out that your screws back here are underneath everything. It doesn't need to be exactly on the corners. Okay. I do need a different piece of paper. Hang on just a second. Actually, I'm just going to rip that one off. It wasn't important anyway. Okay. So right now it's just barely, you can barely hear anything, just hear it sliding across the bed. So we're going to loosen this up, loosen it up. Right there it started to grab. As soon as I pull that off, it's tighter. Tighten it up just a hair more. Still pretty, right there. A little bit of drag to it. Now we're going to move it over to this side. Now, after you go through this initial setup, it's not going to be that far off. Every time you go to adjust, it's just going to be a hair off. You know, I usually do it about every 2 or 3 prints. I'll go through and bevel the bed, or if I see that there's a problem as far as it looks like it's not squishing down as far on that first layer, I'll take and I'll adjust my bed. Okay, so now we're going pretty much back over here where we were. Notice that now that's a lot tighter because now we raised the whole bed up. So now we got to tighten that screw down just a little bit, lower the bed. Slowly bring it back up. Be sure to pull the screwdriver off every time. Right there's just barely dragging, which is fine for now. I'm going to take it back over here to this side. It's a little bit heavier drag than it was over here, but that's fine. It's still pretty loose. You'll see over here it tightened up. So now what we're going to do, tighten the screw up a little bit to lower the bed. Light drag. That's all I want. Go ahead and pull this over. And what I do is I usually try to leave the paper underneath it when I do this. That way it doesn't scratch the bed. Not that it really would anyway. That glass is pretty tough. Okay, this one's too loose. I'm going to loosen it up a little bit. Okay. So it's got a nice drag to it. And let's see over here, it'll tighten back up a little bit. Just tighten the screw up to lower the bed. Give it a little bit more clearance. And this is something that you're going to have to go back around the bed probably about 4 or 5 times in total before it'll all pretty much be even. There we go. Okay, take it back over here. It's a little bit light. Move it back here again. It's a little bit too tight. Loosen it just a hair. Close enough. I'll see over here it's real loose. Just try to find that happy medium between it all. Right there's a light drag. Still a little bit heavy right there. So we're slowly getting to the point where we're not having to adjust everything quite as much. Get back over here. Okay. This side over here is a little bit too loose. So we're going to tighten that up just a little bit by loosening the bolt. Just a hair down. See, now we're getting down now to where it's pretty close. Okay, hang on for just a second. I need to take a phone call. Sorry about that, but when the wife calls, you answer the phone. Okay, so we have slight drag there. A little bit heavy slat, but you know what? I'd rather have it tighter than to have it looser. So I'm just going to take this one and tighten it up just a hair. Raise the bed. There we go. It's the same, and the same. Now, we know all four corners are pretty much adjusted. Now let me show you something. You take it right into the middle, right there. Okay, right now it's dragging. Don't be surprised if you do that and you don't feel any drag in the middle. There's no adjustment for that. If it does that, don't worry about it. In your software for slicing, be sure to, instead of just having a 0.2 layer height on everything, if it gives you the option like Cura does to give it a thicker first layer, go for a 0.3 layer height. That'll make up any discrepancies in the print bed. That way you'll have a nice even first layer. Okay, so we now have our bed completely adjusted. We have it where the height matches. And what I usually do too, and this is, once again, that was a pretty crude adjustment. You know, we started from a really off print bed and we brought it back. So what I'll do is, it's nothing for me to just take it, auto home it one more time to get everything off the end stops again, and then back on the end stops just to make absolutely sure before I start printing. Okay, and then of course you always want to disable the steppers. Right off the bat you want to slide that over, and if it makes a clunk, then you know that you're too low. Once again, I don't know if you can hear that, but there's a slight drag. That's fine. Drag's the same there. Drag's the same there. And drag's the same there. So we're completely even. So we're going to go to prepare. Actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide this off to the side. I'm going to bring this to the front. Now whenever I'm actually setting this up for printing, I am testing frosted glass right now, but I'm still not 100% sure about it. So what I do even till now, I go and use the plain glass. It's the borosilicate glass. I probably completely botched that, but oh well. Anyway, what I'll do is I'll take it and I'll completely clean it. I use it's the 91% isopropyl alcohol, the rubbing alcohol, and that does a really good job on taking the glue off and any PLA that's really stuck down. And what I'll do is I'll wipe it down with that and paper towels, and then for my glue I always use this Elmer's washable school glue, and it's the disappearing purple. Now I know they got a bunch of different glues on the market. I started out, the very first glue I ever tried, which on the whenever I started having them come loose, I found this stick that was like 20 years old. And it was nasty as it could be, but it actually worked. So I went ahead and went to Walmart, picked up a package of 3 of these, and they're the large ones. I want to say it was like $4. It might have been $3, I'm not for sure. But they sell them individually for like 99 cents. I'm sure the 99-cent store has it. I'm sure the Dollar Tree has it. I'm sure a lot of places have it. You'll find it wherever they have the ink pens, rulers, or craft supplies inside most stores, even grocery stores. You'll more than likely find something like this. But this is the one I personally use. And what I'll do, just so that it's a little bit above the plastic, and wipe it across the bed. And this is on a cold bed. I'm not heating the bed up. Once you heat the bed up, the glue dries up. and I don't know how exactly it works, but it does a great job. Okay, so just wipe it across until you see a haze across it, and then it'll actually dry once you preheat the bed, and you won't even notice it. It just completely disappears. And then from this point, I always take my printer, I always go to Prepare, and I go to Preheat PLA, because that's what I've been printing with, is PLA. And then at the same time, I go to Prepare Auto Home. Now, I know for sure in Cura it will take an automatically home before it starts to print, but I always like to do that just so that everything's in position whenever I start printing. Now, if your printer has where it squeaks a lot, what I recommend getting is white lithium grease. I picked this up over at Elmer's Auto Parts here in Salinas, but they've got different brands of it all over, I'm sure. And what I'll do is I'll take and I'll just put a little bit on the rods. I do it like, well, I've done it one time, I think, since I got the printer, and it except for when I redid the brackets, and in which case I added more onto the rods to keep any squeaking. But the stuff lasts forever. But I just put a little bit on whenever if it starts squeaking. Like today, what I did is I actually wiped it down, and later on I'll put a little bit more on there and smear it on there very lightly. In fact, I could even do it right now. I don't put a truckload of it on there. I just take a little bit on my finger, and I just run a light film. Just make sure you don't drip it on your print bed, or you're going to have nightmares on getting it on there. The prints are not going to stick. Just a light, I gotta get that off the belt. Just a light film of it on there, and that takes care of all the squeaks, and it makes it run smoother. I didn't think about it whenever I assembled the printer. What I should have done is I should have loaded up the bearings before I put them on the rods. And what I mean by loading it up, I should have took a little bit of grease, squirted it down inside there, and maybe took a Q-tip and run it along the little ball bearings that were on the inside. I should have done that, and I didn't. In hindsight, I really should have, and I do have new bearings that eventually I will switch them out, because they do, over time you start hearing them making little grinding noises and stuff. In which case then I'll definitely load them up at that time. I just want to get that extra grease off that belt. Don't want grease on there if I can get out of it. Okay, so at this point, you've pretty much got your bed leveled. You have your glue on your print bed, and I don't know if you can tell, but it's clear now. The haze went away. And then what I do myself is I print on the SD card. I take and slice whatever the model is, and I only use Cura. I don't even use Rapidity anymore. I just use Cura. I'll slice the model, and then I'll put it on the SD card and bring it out here and then plug it in, and I'll just go ahead and print from the SD card. Yeah, it turned it off. So the problem I'm having right now is the Teflon tube inside the throat, which is this threaded portion right there. Inside there's a Teflon tube, and it has degraded. That's the reason why I had the major where it seized up in the extruder a while back, and so I drilled it out, which didn't help matters any, but it really wasn't the cause of what's happening. It's just constantly oozing. So if I have a print that's got multiple pieces, it wants to ooze between the pieces. And as you can see right there between the legs, it's already oozing between them. So I've got a new throat on order, but in the meantime, till that gets here from China, I did order a new piece of Teflon tubing. So hopefully by next week I'll be back up and running like it should be. But if you notice, for the first layer, it smashed down pretty good. and it looks like it stayed stuck. And I have no doubt that with the glue on the print bed, it's going to stay put. This shouldn't be an issue. But I do know that this Marvin's going to look horrible by the time it gets all the way up there, so I'll just go ahead and discontinue the print here in a moment. Anyway, that's how you do it. I hope this video helped out, and if anybody has any questions, just go ahead and hit me up in the comments below. Otherwise, you can reach me on Twitter or on Facebook. I got the links down in the video description. And I sure appreciate you guys watching. As of today, I believe I am up to 79 subscribers, which is I was really surprised to see that the channel's kind of growing as fast as it is. I really appreciate it. I appreciate every one of you that subscribe. I appreciate anybody that just watches my videos. If you please go on the bottom and go ahead and hit the like button, I'd appreciate it. And like I said, if you have any comments or suggestions or anything, please leave them in the comments below. I sure appreciate it. I try to get back as soon as I can to anybody who makes a comment. And I just really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye.